Welcome everyone, this is Heritage Mezcal. I am Chava Peribán, your host, and we're here with Joven John Darby. Welcome.
Thank you, Chava. Thank you for having me here.
I think the first thing people have to know is that I didn't tell you that we were going to be filming this.
I did not know.
And you didn't bring
I've not got my suit on, in my linen suit and tie. I could have got dressed up for you. But
really?
No,
You have a pink suit? Pink linen suit?
I don't have a pink linen suit.
You're missing that. I think that will be really appropriate for you when you go to Palenques, John Darby.
Yeah, I spend more time in Palenques than in recording studios, so I'll come dressed for that today.
That is accurate. So the first thing we need to do is to shoot whatever we have in our glasses, because I need to serve you something that is critical for us to start this episode. So
something that's not this that we already
something
have.
that is not this. So I'm sorry, we'll have to shoot it. Cheers, sir.
Cheers.
Oof, this is delightful. You know what this is, right? I was asking you before. Nothing
Are you going to give me any
mind.
clues?
Well, it's a very special style that you would only find in Guerrero, to my knowledge.
Oh, it's from Guerrero, so it's Cuprieta.
Yes.
I was going to guess it was from Michoacán.
But it's been modified in some ways. So I will actually tell you that later. I won't disclose it right away. And I want you to drink this, which I have to tell you is one of my favorite things that I've tried in a long time.
Okay. You know, Guerrero is one of the few mezcal states I've not actually been to.
That you've never been to?
Yeah.
It's hard. I was just there with the Sansecan folks, which I love, but it is, a lot of people will tell you that it's not the smartest thing of your life to go there.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So, sir, please first try it, and then we'll have a conversation.
Okay.
Oh, man. This is from Michoacán, from Real de Sumatlan. It's an Inaquidens with a worm. Well, with a bunch of worms. So, well, just speak your mind. What do you think of this?
Okay, it's delicious. I could tell it was I can see from the bottle there it's got a little colouring. And on first sip, I thought, that's Michoacán. But yeah, I see what you've done there.
So I wanted to record this episode because I want you to change the name of your brand.
Okay.
So, and actually I have two Gusano expressions here on the table with us, and we'll be going through them while we record. And the first one that we shot was a chumilin. So are you familiar with the chumilin?
No.
Which is this sting bug that they throw into the spirits in Guerrero.
Okay. Well, no, as I say, I've not been there, so I haven't experienced that. But that sounds a bit mad. That's what that first one we shot had, a stink bug.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite things in the planet.
Wow. Okay.
But so for the people that don't know it, you own a brand called Sin Gusano, which will translate to without a worm.
Exactly.
And why did you choose such a name?
Well, to give it its full title, it's the Sin Gusano Project.
No, I don't care about that. I just want to know, why did you choose that name?
Because the project, the ethos of the project is to showcase excellent mezcal without gimmicks, without nonsense, without fancy labeling necessarily, just really, really good spirits. And I know where we're going with this episode. It's going to be interesting, and it's so we've done here. But from my entry into mezcal, it seemed to me that mezcals with the worm in. It was, what was the brand that had the worm in the bottles back in the day?
Well, there's a few. Oro de Oaxaca, I believe,
or
Gusano Rojo.
Yeah, these like 80s
Recuerdo
kind
de
of
Oaxaca
brand.
maybe had it too. I can't remember, but
these, these are there's I think Gusano Rojo is probably the one that people outside of Mexico might have seen 20 years ago or more on their liquor store shelves, and it was like the macho thing, right? It was seen as like the macho thing. You're going to have a shot of mezcal and have the worm. As you know, that was like, for me, it seemed like that was really just a marketing thing. And I know, as I say, what we're doing here is we're going to find out that there's loads of interesting stuff that's using the worm. But that name came about from saying, well, that's just marketing bullshit, and we're not going to do any of that
Well,
nonsense.
we're not going to have gimmicks.
We're just going to have synonymous with no gimmicks. Yeah, no bullshit, no gimmicks, just good mezcal. And so that was where the name came from. Also, at the time, as we were chatting about before we started, the whole Sin Gusano business and project started as a bar rather than a brand.
Oh, that is true, which I didn't know at all.
So
this was new to me. Yeah.
So the name, and in London, so I'm from London. The whole thing's from London, in the UK, and the name Sin Gusano. If you don't speak a word of Spanish, sin, obviously in English, is a sin. It sounds like a naughty name for a bar.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I had never thought about it. Yeah.
So it was like multiple reasons to choose it. One was it sounded like kind of a good name for a late night mezcal bar, Sin. And the other to say, no gimmicks, just good mezcal.
So, and actually, like I just wanted to mess with you a little bit at the beginning, obviously, and because I've recently,
Congratulations.
did I achieve it?
I didn't even see that coming. Ridiculously.
you thought I was. Well, cheers for that.
Cheers.
And for me, the reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you, and again, like I do want you to change the name of your brand, but that's going to be a later episode, and maybe it's not going to be recorded.
Or start a new brand.
True.
A sideline brand.
But I think like you are one of the like unmovable purists that I know in the business. And there's few people that are more stubborn,
take that as a
are
compliment.
more fixated with what good mezcal or whatever we call good mezcal should be. So I wanted to...
Not that I'm saying what it should be.
No.
But just trying to represent what I find in its.
Well, and I think that could be my first question. So again, we all have biases. We all have an incomplete picture, obviously, most of the time of this landscape of spirits. But how will first you define or which are your markers to say this is a mezcal that has no gimmicks, that it's the closest to the intention of a culture, of a landscape, of a terroir, of the agave itself? I don't know. How do you gauge that?
Just by going to communities that make mezcal and seeing how they're producing it and drinking it locally before it's been bastardized in some way for an external market. And when I say bastardized in some way for an external market, I guess I mean putting it in a super fancy bottle and bringing the ABV, for example, way down from what they might be consuming it at locally to make it cheaper to import and make it easier to put into cocktail bars and that kind of thing. So if you go, but I mean, I was in Jalisco in January this year, in the Sierra of Jalisco, and there's people making Maximiliana, like Raicilla in the mountains at 38, 39, 40% ABV, and that's how it's drunk and sold. And not people that are exporting or working with foreign brands, that's just how they're drinking it locally. So there's always exceptions to like these conceptions, these fixed ideas you have or initial conceptions you have, and absolutely be the first person to say, I don't know. Nobody knows everything.
Well, and I think that's the right strategy. You go there, you drink with them in the same way they do, and then you realize what they call the house spirit or their local spirit or...
Yeah, and it is, as you know, super, super localized. You take one spirit from one community to another community and sort of ask the producer in this place what he thinks of that place. And inevitably, invariably, they're not a fan, because
well, it depends. Yeah, there's some that are friendlier than others, but yeah, it's uncommon that a mezcalero will give a lot of compliments to another town that it's close to.
Partly maybe that's like a bit of pride, but also partly it's just the fact that if they're like a heritage producer, if it's in their family that they've been making mezcal in their family for generations, that is just the only mezcal they've drunk for their lives. That's the flavor they know and are used to, right? So,
well, yeah, it's like what we say here about, maybe it's the same in the UK, because against the odds, I do find a lot of similarities between like small towns in the UK and Mexico. And I think like...
go on.
Yeah, well, like I was once in one, and I think we have this expression here is that, if you go out of a town, you just eat your frijoles y morisqueta, just beans and rice, and anything that is extravagant looking in terms of food, because you're from a small town, you won't mess with that, right? You're used to your flavors, you're used to your style, to your even the size of the portion. So that's Popeye the Sailor, your spinacs. Mm-hmm. And I think in a way that is something that, as you're saying, it happens with mezcal. Yeah. This is what I've drank, this is what I recognize as fortunate, and that's it.
So exactly. So for me, I'm not trying to be the arbiter or like the person that says this is good and this is bad. I'm just trying to be the person that says I've travelled around these places, and that's how they drink it there, and that's how they drink it there, and that's how they drink it there.
Oh, that's how they drink it with the gringos there. When a gringo comes by, that's what they serve to the gringos.
Most of the places I go aren't really used to gringos turning up at all.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't really think they've got many gringo batches sitting by. But so that for me is what's interesting about it. So is that they are different. Is that this place to this place to this place, the way they're drinking it, the way they are enjoying it locally, they're really different to each other.
Yeah.
So it's not me saying one's better than the other, or one's more traditional, or one's the way we should be doing it. That's the way it's being consumed, and that's fascinating to me that it's different by such micro regions.
Okay. So, and I think that my follow-up question is, which are the gimmicks that you hate the most? Which are just the way in which you think that sometimes amazing mezcal gets to be ruined? Like, which are your biggest offenders in that direction? You have a lot. I know you have a lot.
I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, I was staying in an Airbnb or just a rental place in Oaxaca. Years ago, actually, quite a few years ago now, one of my earlier trips to Oaxaca, and the people I was staying with knew that I was doing something with Mezcal internationally. And so they called like the brother-in-law or something of the owner of the Airbnb was starting a Mezcal thing in Oaxaca. So they called him over and they was like, wanted my opinion on what I thought. And they'd tinted it, they'd made Mezcal, I don't even know where it's from, I guess it was from Matalan or something. Yeah. But they tinted the Mezcal pink somehow.
And you don't like pink?
And no, but they specifically said, this is for the women and for the gays. And I was like, okay.
And this was previous to the release of Darby the movie.
I was like, okay.
Well, I want you to watch what piece of advice did you give?
I was being hosted in this house, so I wasn't going to get into this depth of conversation about it we're getting into now. So I try to in my Spanish now is not great, but it was very limited back then. So I just tried to explain that this whole thing for me it was more of for what I do, it's more of like a slightly more puritanical approach, where I'm not looking to adjust the thing in any way, like by making it red or making it or making it low ABV or aging. We can get into aging, I guess, in a minute. I just tried to, as delicately as possible with my bad Spanish, explain to them that wasn't necessarily for me, but, buen suerte.
What about cremas?
Cremas.
You've been offered cremas
sí,
in very traditional palenques. Will you modify the crema? Will you age the crema? Or
I don't really know who's buying the crema. Do you know who's buying the cremas?
I think it's like a dessert. Like, who's buying those crazy cakes that you see all around Oaxaca? People that want to have dessert.
I guess, yeah. Well, yeah, everyone likes cake.
Okay, so no pink in your book.
I mean, it's not that I'm against pink, but
no colors, no blue, no green, no pink.
It's a bit stark, just stark marketing for like an antiquated view of what people want,
Well, but it's also interesting to me that some people, it's almost like having like local myopia. It is so common to you. You've been around it for so long, thinking that it's absolutely the opposite of exceptional. It is, like...
Oh, well, someone locally making a mezcal and making it pink to make the product. Yeah.
So they want to twist it because they went to university and they told them that creativity is a good thing and that you have to distinguish yourself from the competition. Yeah. And they come up with all of this extravagance.
And also, I mean, I don't have... I was speaking to someone else, excuse me.
No, please.
I was speaking to a journalist in the UK earlier today, actually, about some of this stuff. And I obviously don't have anything against people making a product to enrich to go out and make something of their life or their better their situation or whatever. I have a concern that with mezcal, it's still so little understood in the major markets and the major places that people are selling to, that if people's understanding of it is that their initial understanding of it is that altered, gimmicky product.
But that's already the case, though.
Well, that's what I'm trying to rally against the singer-songwriter project. Yeah. There's no harm in these other things existing as long as it's not at the expense of the traditional stuff that I find more fascinating.
And which most normally it is. Like I was just, it was so funny to me. So you've been to the Olive Garden. Are you familiar with what such institution is?
Where?
In the U.S. The Olive Garden, it's a restaurant that I believe there's so many memes and whatnot about it, but it's, let's say, just not considered to be the fanciest place on earth.
Right.
And if you upgrade your margarita, the Olive Garden, you get to be made it with Patron.
Okay.
So millions of people go to this restaurant, and what is being represented as the high-end quality stuff is your Patron.
Yeah.
And then they opened a Soho House here in Mexico City, and I happened to be there. Do you know what a Soho House is?
Yeah.
Well, whatever. It's just like a
members club.
Well, yeah, I think it's a scam, but
Soho House in general.
Well, it's just weird. Like, why would you pay money to go to a place where you're going to spend money? But I guess I just don't understand
prestige.
club.
I mean, I'm not a member of Soho House, but I do know a couple of people that are. Of the one in London.
Well,
but it's a place if you've got the money, you can go and have meetings there, and it's impressive.
Yeah, feel pretty. Or anyways, they made a paloma there, and again, like, it's a place where you pay in Mexico as a Mexican 50,000 pesos a year to go. So that's 2.5 grand, which for a Mexican salaries is quite a stretch. And you are getting your paloma made with Patron. So it's a place for creative minds, for innovators. And what it's being served up front, it's exactly you're representing a full category with something that it's not. It's not even close to the higher performers.
Yes, well, that's just branding, isn't it? That's just, they want to have the thing that people want, regardless of.
But do they want? Okay, so that is like, I guess, like the third follow-up for this. So gimmicks are only effective if they are gimmicking someone, or if they are actually making someone feel good. Like, the best gimmicks make someone feel good.
I suppose that's the way of looking at it.
Well, that's an effective gimmick. If you don't catch it, you had a great time. Maybe you're gonna catch it in 5-10 years, but in the moment, right there and then. You've
felt like you've had a good experience.
You enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So, like, do you have like, why do you think? Because I guess that's like such a normal discussion, right? Do people want it, or is it because we're putting it in front of them? But what do you think?
I mean, it's because we're putting it in front of them, isn't it? The brands with the celebrity brands and the huge conglomerate-owned things, they've just got infinite. Compared to little tiny things.
Well, you don't have options.
Got infinite marketing budgets, so it's on the side of the bus, and it's in the newspaper, and it's.
And I don't even think it's the marketing. It's just that you go to a bar, and that's what you're getting offered.
And now, I mean, people that don't know anything about mezcal and have never been to Mexico are going and buying George Clooney's thing in a club. Right, because it's George Clooney's thing. And
well,
it's
because
in the club.
It's a tequila, or is they have tequila and they have 3 options, and that's it. I mean, that happens to me in a lot of like, we went to Barba Azul, and we're not gonna name what we're not gonna name what we drank. I have a picture of you holding such a bottle, and we drank it with delight because we wanted.
I've tried much of it, but go on.
Well, we wanted something to drink while we were dancing, and that was our option.
Yeah,
we didn't have. We couldn't be like, sir, excuse me, may you please bring some Miahuatlan, Victor Ramos mezcal? Like, that was not
sure.
Close to it.
Yeah, and these two things, like something for me. I don't necessarily think that the ambition of everyone working with mezcal should be to get their bottle into the club and everyone to buy it at the table when they go dancing. That's not where all mezcal should be.
You have so little vision. I am so ashamed of you. I thought you were looking high and big, trying to conquer the world.
No, I think it should have a different place. It should be something that's respected and paid the correct price for, but not just something to pay a premium for in a club when you're going dancing and you don't really care necessarily. It could be something that you appreciate in more of a tasting environment, like more of a wine bar environment.
Okay, so I think like maybe that's the fourth follow-up. that is like, so then what would you think? Because you were telling me just recently that you are thinking about maybe opening a space where people can come and enjoy some of these spirits, serve from your holy hand, and just to have a more personal relationship to the spirit itself.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, this is just to give a slightly more context. I don't know where we started. That's how I started with this whole. That's how Gusano got started. Was as a tasting space before we started bottling or putting anything under a brand name. It literally started with stuff that I could carry home in a suitcase and do tastings for a bunch of people in a little back street place in Hackney.
Okay, that sounds mysterious to say the least. But okay, cheers for that. It could have developed into that becoming more of a permanent. The bottling project came afterwards, and the physical space could have become more of a permanent thing, but of course the pandemic happened. So now I'm kind of motivated to find a space to be part of the whole overall project. There's the bottlings, there's a subscription club, and then there'll be the tasting space. Yeah. And in this logic of, because I guess the logic is, I will try to make an environment that really facilitates the appreciation of the spirit.
Right.
How do you see that? Like, which are the elements to achieve that?
Well, the first thing I thought when we first did this space, first did the tastings before all the bottlings and everything, it was important to me. We only sold Mezcal and we only sold it in flights. So you had to buy a tasting set of 3. You couldn't.
You really wanted to get people wasted. Okay, I love it.
Because I thought it's so diverse. Of course, that's what's so fascinating about Mezcal. And some of them, not everyone's going to like every single Mezcal. Some people have got preferences for this style or this style. And if you're only serving one person one Mezcal, there's a reasonable chance they're not going to like it if that's their first experience of Mezcal. That was my experience of trying to drink Mezcal. Not that I didn't like it. It was my experience of going around places in the UK before I started up this whole thing, in London anyway, and buying Mezcal. And the few places that sold Mezcal, they would just sell you the one Mezcal. The person that sold it to you wasn't the person that knew much about it. The owner knew and he wasn't there. And they'd sell you the Mezcal. It'd be very expensive. No one would explain anything. You'd try it. You wouldn't really even know where it was from. And it would just taste a bit weird. And you'd spent £15 on a little thing. So it was very important that someone that knew what they were talking about was there and that you tried more than one at the same time. So even if you didn't like the first one, you tried 3. So at least you would know, well, okay, I didn't really like that one, but these ones, they're all crazy different. Oh, wow, they're all really different. And there's more you can try. Maybe they're...
And that is such a fascinating approach because, especially if you are from a country that has... you've never tried cooked agave in your life. You've never tried pulque. You've never tried any agave-related products or even fruits or vegetables that could be in some way connected to agave. Barbacoa, if you want, you just have absolutely no context whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I think it's very smart to be like, okay, it's a whole different language. Like you need a few sentences in order to understand how this really sounds. And you just don't think it's like people shouting on your face.
Yeah. Because I didn't fall in love with Mezcal until being in Mexico and going to Palenques and trying it. As you say, the UK is really far away, obviously much further away from the source than the US, which is
and that's another thing. Like the Mexican culture is very much present in the US. Yeah. It depends where you go and whatnot, but there's a heavy presence. Yeah. Whereas in the UK, you have the Oaxaca restaurant with W,
with the W phonetically spelled,
and I'm sure a few other things, but it's not.
It's massively growing in the last year or so. There's really been a sort of a boom in all things Mexico, it feels like. But, it's obviously a long, long way behind in terms of cultural integration and understanding compared to the US. And, of course, in terms of how many people and how much money there is to spend on agave spirits. But, for me, it was really important to show people from the start that there was diversity, that there was more than they could possibly comprehend with one drink. You're not going to, teach people everything or convert everybody from one visit, but you could at least leave them knowing that there was more that they know that they didn't know, rather than if you just had one in a club, you'd be like, I don't like that, and they'll never go back to Mezcal. You could at least spark some kind of
Yeah, you have
intrigue.
curiosity, interest, just like the sense of ignorance from them. Just like I'm ignorant in this thing, which I think is a powerful feeling in order to make people like try to scratch the surface.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that's the way of putting it.
Okay, love it. So my last thing that I want to do with you, you tried the first Gusano, which again, like I really hope that after this conversation, you're going to do all your trademarks differently and you're going to be named Con Gusano.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not unaware that the name has got limitations.
Oh, I know. So are you finished with that one, sir?
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to have a second one, and this is how we're going to say goodbye. You don't have to tell me much about it. It's extremely different, but this is a pichomel, so it's an agave marmorata from La Reserva Tehuacán Cuicatlán, made by Ildefonso Macedas, which actually is super funny. He texted me and he wants me to find a name for the new brand he's making.
Oh, yeah.
Which...
it's Con Gusano as well.
Yeah, so... It's actually interesting because they have another... So, you know, a gusano is actually not a gusano. It's a moth in terms of what it's thrown into the mezcal. This is actually a gusano. It's a worm, and they have a very specific species of worms in that region that are famous. They do tacos with them. They're bigger. I don't have any inside this bottle. But they are very, very distinct. So I'm curious.
It doesn't smell very strongly marmorata, does it?
No, but I mean, pichomel-wise, pichomeles don't taste like marmorata at all.
Well, I think they still have vegetal, can have a vegetal peppery thing.
But you have to try this, man. Oh, you have to try it.
Tastes a bit more like a marmorata, but yeah, the initial taste. The follow-up taste is marmorata. The initial taste is gusano.
Yeah. But it's a gusano that I have never encountered in my life. It's just a different version of gusano. So my only objective of all of this episode was to have you smiling while you drinking gusano. And we have cameras here and I catch you.
Well done.
Sir, it's a full pleasure.
Cheers.
Chin, chin. And I'm sure we'll record something else. Thanks for coming by, Joven Dan.
Thanks, Doba.
It's fucking insane, isn't it?
It's got a really good... That first... It goes so fast. Like the first...
the first interaction.
Hit just disappears and then you're left with the agave.
This was Heritage Mezcal, the incredibly eclectic podcast that likes to delve into the depths of the country we call Mexico. I'm Chava Peribán, your host, and I truly hope you enjoyed this episode. All the sounds, all the music, and now all the videos living in YouTube are made by Roy Sierra. Tómese el mezcalito con gusto y medida y nos miramos al rato.